Hi everybody, welcome back to Aamsuntitledpodcast. I'm Am. Excuse that, that's just my phone, ignore it. My phone hasn't buzzed up until I've sat to record this, and now my phone's buzzing. Now everybody wants this, and that. Oh my god. Right, anyway, I'm just going to put my phone on silent for the time being, just while I finish. That word vomit's coming back just while I record this. So actually, I'm recording in a slightly different environment today. Normally, as you guys know, if you've listened to my first podcast, I generally tend to record in my living room just because I like being sat on the sofa in natural light, just by myself, just so I can record in peace. And actually, today, I am completely by myself. But I'm in a hotel room in London and I'm actually here for a course. So I thought, why not bring everything with me and just record it in the hotel room? I've got nobody to disturb me. It's a bit easier to record here than it is recording at home because obviously at home there's lots and lots of distractions. But yeah, and it feels kind of weird because it's the first time, not only have I ever come to London on my own, but the first time I've ever actually stayed in a hotel by myself. And I had like a few bumps in the road along the way. First of all, it started with my train being 38 minutes late, which then forced me to cancel my original Uber to get to my train, to get to my hotel room. And then I ended up paying a cancellation fee for that. And then it ended up in me having to get another Uber to get here, which was actually significantly cheaper. So I may as well have just not bothered booking one in advance. But yeah, anyway, it is what it is. I'm here. It was absolutely pissing it down with rain when I came. So my jeans were soaked, my hair was soaked. So the first thing I did when I got in is I unpacked a little bit, just my toiletries and my pajamas for the night. I'm currently sat in my Percy Jackson, the Eras Tour sweatshirt. I think what I'm gonna do is I've been having a look at my profile picture and I just like it doesn't really seem me because I'm a huge Percy Jackson fan, a huge book fan. I thought I would maybe have a profile picture that kind of shows that. So you may notice that my logo might change into a different sort of picture, maybe showing a little bit more of myself. Not going to be showing my face. If that's what you want, it's not going to happen. There's a reason people record a podcast. Most people might not be comfortable showing their faces. I'm not comfortable as of yet showing my face. And also, my laptop, which has my notes on it, is about to die. Great. Let me just quickly grab the charger. I will be back. Anyway, I'm back. Laptop's all plugged in, so it's not going to die, and I'm ready to start. So, in today's episode, I'm going to be discussing episode 5 of Percy Jackson, and which is the title I Plunged to My Death. So I knew, like, as soon as I read that description, that it's going to definitely be about St. Louis Arch. So I was really excited to see what they would do with that. So the opening scene is with young Percy and Sally Jackson, which I thought was really nice. It opened with the two of them. And she's basically trying to teach him to learn how to swim. She sees it as a life skill that he needs to learn. And, I think it's because it's sort of like a hint, maybe like to non-book readers of the show that haven't read the books but are still watching the show, that she, in her own kind of way, has been preparing him for the moment he would become a demigod, which I've always believed that. Like, I always think that Sally Jackson, everything that she's done in her life has been to prepare her son for this moment. And there's a little bit where they have a bit of like a conversation. Percy's just saying that he can't do it, like he doesn't feel comfortable, he doesn't feel safe. And his mum's saying, like, look, you need to learn these things because one day they're going to come in useful for you. And she, like, I don't know what she says, but there's a line where young Percy says, but you'll always be here. And I think it's kind of reinforcing that idea of like unconditional love. And, he always believes that even if there's nobody there for him, his mom will always be there. And I think that's so sweet. And the bond not only that Virginia has with Walker, who plays Percy on the show, but also with Asriel? Was it Asriel? I'm not sure how you say his name. But she has that bond with both boys. And it's really nice to see that on screen, and you can really see that she does genuinely care about them. And I think they're chemistry is just honestly perfection. Yeah. So then it moves on to Percy sort of having a nightmare where he hears the voice, the shadow speaking to him again, saying that she is coming. Now, that she, when he first originally said it, I wasn't 100% sure who they were going to put in. Now, I feel like that sounds silly because I've read the books, but I don't know. I was just a bit like unsure of who they were going to put in that dynamic. Anyway, and it's basically just foreshadowing the next big bad that Percy is going to have to face. And then it moves on to the train sequence, and it's Percy and Annabeth's little heart-to-heart conversation about Annabeth's past. Now, the reason why this scene stood out to me is because I think Annabeth is such a guarded character, but with Percy, it almost seems like it's natural for her. Like, he allows her to feel vulnerable and that it's okay for her to be sensitive and calm and real and like I feel like she doesn't have to fake it around him. She doesn't feel like she has to fake it or put on a brave face in front of him. She can be 100% truly and honestly herself and say how she feels and what she's thinking. And he what made me laugh was when they're talking, and then obviously, if you didn't know, Thalia, Luke, and Annabeth all came to Camp Half Blood together. So basically, Annabeth was saying that whole idea that when she was found by them, Luke cared for her straight away, but Thalia, she didn't. She made her earn it, and Percy sort of says, "Oh, so is that what I have to do for you? I have to earn it with you as well?" And she says, "Yeah, maybe." Like, I don't know. And in my head, like, I was sitting there and I was like, mate, Percy, you don't have to thingy for her affection. You've already won it over and you're not even trying, which I think is so sweet. It's a nice little Percabeth moment in that. I'm glad that the show has included those very, like, what would you call them? Like, bonding conversations. I'm pretty sure that's not the right word for it, but that's just what I could think of. And it just shows like that whole transition from them being just, strangers to acquaintances to now they're, they're friends now. Like they're able to have those sort of deep, in-depth conversations, which I thought was really nice. And then it cuts to Percy just sort of talking to Annabeth about his concern regarding the gods. Like he can't comprehend why demigods have to buy their parents. I was gonna say the wrong word there. Buy their parents' affection. Why isn't it just given? Because all Percy's known is the affection from his mother, and his mum's love for him is absolutely unconditional. He doesn't ask for it; she just gives it to him. That's how much she loves him. And he says, like, he doesn't understand why they have to burn an offering just for their parent to be able to listen to them. And it is such a valid point. Like, no other demigod questions what Percy does. And I think that's why I like him so much as a character, is because he just can't see something that's wrong and not say anything. He just feels the need to point it out. And I really like that about his character. There's not a lot of characters that I've read that I like that, but it's really nice that Percy is one of those people that isn't scared to say when there's something wrong, which I absolutely adore about him as a character. And then Annabeth tells him about why she ran away from her father's home, which, if you don't know, I'm just going to quickly summarize it up. So, Athena gave Annabeth to her father, and then her father met another woman who became her stepmother, um, who had kids with her father, basically. The two boys, I believe, that she has. I'm not sure if that's 100% correct, but from what I can remember, it's two boys. And she wouldn't let Annabeth socialize with her children. She felt that she was like a weird and a bad sort of influence. So that's why Annabeth ran away, because she felt out of place, which is totally understandable. I mean, anybody would feel that way. And there was one little thing that I noticed was with her Camp Half-Blood necklace, she has a ring on it. And if you haven't read the book, you're obviously not going to know what that ring is. But that ring is her father's college ring. So it's kind of the only piece of her dad that she has left with her, if you know what I mean. And there's a lovely shot of Leah just like touching it. And it's such a small gesture, but honestly, it has such a big impact. As somebody who's very observant, like I really like when little details like that are put in because even though they can be overlooked by some people, those details are actually really important. And it's also like another thing that I noticed is, you know, it's almost like, the invisibility cap, the Yankees cap that she has is the only bit of her mom that she has as well. So it's almost like these objects are the signs of their love for her, in a sense. I don't know if that's actually what they're supposed to be. Just from my interpretation, that's kind of what I got out of it. But yeah. And then I also discovered that Grover's definitely not a morning person. Um, and he just there's this really nice comedic moment where he's just whinging about them talking while he's trying to sleep, and it kind of transitions the scene from being like a really really serious moment because obviously Percy and Annabeth are having quite an in-depth like heart-to-heart conversation, and it becomes all of a sudden humorous because obviously Grover's there to add that comedic timing in, which I really appreciate. Sometimes like this show is what is really good at is giving you a really tense moment, but then giving you a moment to breathe with comedic timing, which I really like. I really appreciate that about the show, and I'm so happy that they've incorporated those bits because those like the funny bits are just as important as the serious bits. So I'm so happy that they've done that. And then it the frame sort of moves on to Percy, Annabeth, and Grover sitting at a table in the train, and Percy brings up the prophecy again, and he's saying that he said that he'd expressed his concern because he found out that the Oracle had told him that he would fail to save what matters most in the end. And then they see centaurs out the window, which is hidden by the mist from humans' eyes. If you don't know what the mist is the veil that shields the human world from the demigod world, I guess. Um, and you know, I can't. Yeah, it's Grover actually that talks about Pan. If you don't know who Pan is the god of the wild, and he disappeared. And ever since then, there's been nobody to sort of keep the wild in check or to look after it or preserve it. And Percy realizes that actually Uncle Ferdinand, who they met in Medusa's lair, was actually a searcher. Now, if you don't know what a searcher is a brave satyr who has devoted their life to finding Pan. And Annabeth sort of explains to Percy that, prophecies can mean different things. They can be interpreted differently. She's basically saying that, the Oracle didn't say the quest is going to fail to say what matters most in the end. That can mean lots of different things. I've just spilled tea. Oops. I've just spilled it on the chair. Hold on a second. Yeah, sorry, I'm back. I fixed the disaster that I did. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. So she basically said that, they didn't say that the quest was going to fail. You could fail to say what matters most in the end. That could be anything. That could be interpreted differently. And she basically says, like, the harder you work to try and understand, the more difficult it becomes to understand, which I think is such a real thing. Like, in life, there are things that happen that is just not, we just don't understand why they've happened the way that they have. But sometimes you just have to go with it and let it come to you, and that's basically what she's trying to tell Percy. It was a really good moment, actually. I thought that scene was really good. Like the way they worded it was amazing. And then it moves on to a police officer who comes and says that their cabin has been trashed, the one that they've been sleeping in. And there's this moment where the police officer says, well, can you explain what happened? And the boys are like, oh, what? You think we did this? Why would we do something like that? It basically, if you haven't seen the show, the window was sort of smashed and it was an absolute mess. Um, and Annabeth just turns around and says, "Are we under arrest?" And the police officer's like, "I don't think you should take that tone with me." And she's like, "Are we under arrest?" And it ends up in them being brought back to the table with the police officers getting ready to take them to the St. Louis police station to question them. And then there's Echidna's introduction. If you don't know who Echidna is, she's the mother of the monsters. So all the monsters in Greek mythology are seen to be her children, essentially. And she's got a little carry-on with her, with like a dog in it, right? I don't like an animal carrier. It's not carry-on, is it? It's an animal carrier. That's what I meant. And all you can hear is the animal making weird sounds. First, it's not as like loud and obstructive, but yeah, and they just continue throughout the scene. And she basically just she doesn't really introduce herself. She just sort of like talks to them like, oh, I'm a mom and I realize that you kids are by yourself, blah, blah, blah. And then Grover notices some glass shards on her jacket. And that's when the animal noises start to get a bit louder, a little hint that something is going to happen, essentially. And then Percy sort of comes to the conclusion that she's a monster. And his Persassy comment comes out with, we've come across a few monsters like you, and we've sent them all packing. In other words, nice try, but it ain't gonna work. We've already been up against monsters. And she basically tells them that those monsters were her children, and Annabeth clocks on that she's Echidna, the mother of monsters. And she basically explains why she doesn't like demigods. She sees them as dangerous. And she believes that her existence is to stand in the way of demigods and to stop them from causing problems, essentially. And I've noticed that Leah, Annabeth, put her hand over her Yankees cap, and it's almost like, that sensitive side of Annabeth is coming out again. And, that's the only connection that she has to her mother, and like she feels scared. And when children are scared, they tend to run to their mother, and I think they were trying to show that in the show. Obviously she can't physically run to her mother, but she can touch the thing that is the closest thing to her mother's love that she can get. And then I feel like it's just her way of comforting herself more than anything. And then the animals sounds start to get louder and louder, and then eventually the animal carrier zip opens and Percy gets impaled with a stinger, and Annabeth stabs the creature, and they basically just run out of the shop, in other words, and they're running through the trains to the different trains. And then the train starts shaking, and obviously there's a shot of the kids running in one direction and then a little dog running behind them, which is actually the monster that's supposedly chasing them. And eventually the train crashes and the kids manage to jump off the train, but they realise that they're no longer being followed by the monster. And Percy says, I wonder why it's following us. And Annabeth says, Echidna said whatever she's carrying, it's young, so it's not going to venture too far away from its mother. So it's learning how to hunt, basically. And she's guessing that this is hunting part. Yeah. And then it cuts to the kids trying to find a space that they would be safe from her, which generally would be a temple, because inside a temple built for a god, monsters can't enter, essentially. And there's a lovely scene between the three of them where Annabeth says there's an Athenian temple in St. Louis, and Grover says, oh, there's a hidden temple somewhere. And she goes, no, it's not all that hidden. And then there's a lovely shot. I really like this shot, actually, where there's a little puddle of water, and you can see the St. Louis arch through it. And obviously that's a nice little shot. And then screen goes blank, and it moves on. And Annabeth and Grover have a disagreement regarding the Athenian temple. And basically, she sort of says something along the lines of, this is how you show Athena your love, a monument built to the power of perfection. And, it's almost as if, like, Annabeth knows that the only way for her mother to know that she loves her is if she builds her something that is so architecturally stunning that that shows true love, which means that her affection has to be bought in some capacity. Could be also interpreted like that. And it also, I really liked this bit. I know a lot of people were angry about this, like when I was reading some of the comments regarding this episode. It really subtly implies Annabeth's love for architecture, which is a theme for the book, but she doesn't really talk much about it. In the book, she talks about it a lot more. From what I can remember from the book, she and Percy have, I think, a really long discussion about her love for architecture, and that wasn't necessarily put in the show. And I know that a few fans were really upset about that, but maybe what I'm thinking of is maybe they're like planting the seeds now so they can talk about it in a later season. I'm not sure. To be honest, I wasn't that upset about that bit being cut, but I know some people are really passionate about the fact that it was cut out of the script. And then Grover sort of leaves to find them another train or something to get on so that they can get to where they need to be. And Annabeth and Percy are discussing Tina and Poseidon. And she says to him that, look, we're in a temple that's devoted to my mother, but you could still say hi to your dad from here if you wanted to. And he dismisses that idea almost immediately. And he says that, you know, he doesn't want anything from his father, basically, which means that he's still harboring that feeling of being neglected. And I think any child would, if your dad just, I don't know, found out that your dad was a god one day and then he didn't even want to talk to you or claim you until you did something big. I mean, any child would feel like that. And, you know, there's a nice little Percabeth moment where he says that if he had to stick with anybody, he'd stick with Annabeth, no matter what. And she said, careful, it sounds like you're about to call me a friend. And I think that moment is so nice. And the way Leon Walker portrayed that moment was so lovely. He's just showing that really nice transition of their relationship. Like, this is just the beginning of their relationship. And I'm already so invested because I'm interested to see what Uncle Rick does with this, because I'm just like, to me, this love story is one of the greatest ones, probably the greatest one I have ever read. And if they're already like this now, like, I keep thinking, like, in future seasons, like, how excited I'm gonna be when there's things like their first kiss, like their big battle, the sacrifices that they're gonna make for each other. And I think the show is really, really nicely building that up, and it's definitely serving my Percabeth heart. So I don't have any complaints regarding that. And it's just so funny because obviously Percy was impaled with a stinger, and then all of a sudden he goes pale and he falls onto her. And I thought that that was a nice little like nod. He completely falls into her arms to Heroes of Olympus, where they fall into Tartarus together. And obviously, if you haven't read the books, you're not going to get that reference. But I like that they've put that little hint in there. I really do hope that they make something with Heroes of Olympus as well, even if it's not like a series, and maybe if it's just like a set of movies. Like, I think that would be quite good as well. But I don't know. We'll have to see. Whoever decides to pick it up, I hope that Rick is one of the writers and they make it as book accurate as possible, I guess. Anyway, went on a tangent there, went into Heroes of Olympus. That's not what we were talking about right now. We're talking about Percy Jackson. So yeah, and then it cuts to the scene just before the fight with Echidna, and Annabeth suggests to take Percy to the temple's altar. And, Grover said, why? Like, what good is that going to do? And she said that she was going to go to the temple's altar and ask her mother for help. Now, Annabeth never asked for help, but the fact that she had that trust in her mother that she would cure her friend for her, I thought that was, like, really nice. I think that's also the moment where Grover realizes that Annabeth actually does have feelings for Percy, like she does genuinely care about him. And because Grover can actually, because he's a satyr and he can read emotions, I think he knows that and he can see it in the way that she's behaving. She would have never done that for anybody else, but she did it for Percy. So why has she done it? And I thought that moment was really nice. And then they see Echidna coming towards them, and Annabeth says to take Percy inside to protect him, because obviously monsters aren't supposed to be able to get into the temple, so they would be safe. And then Annabeth hears a sound, and that's basically Echidna talking to her, but it's not revealed yet as to what she said to her. Then it moves on to when they are going to the trams to get to the top of the St. Louis Arch, which is the highest point is supposedly the temple's altar. And they see the shadow of the Chimera. And if you don't know what the Chimera is, it's the demigod killer. So it's one of Echidna's children, so one of a monster basically. And Grover can't understand how it's managed to get in. You know, this is a temple, like this is the place of a god. And he says, you know, some like a god would have had to let her in. And then Annabeth realizes that her mother has let them in. And, you know, can I just say, like, the worst parent award definitely goes to Athena for this? Because what kind of mother punishes her child for the mistake that their friends made? I'm sorry, that just doesn't make sense to me on any sort of level. And what she, actually, I've just said all this, and I haven't told you what Echidna said. So she said to Annabeth that her impertinence wounded her mother's pride. So basically, in the last episode, Percy sent Medusa's head to Olympus, much against Annabeth and Grover's better judgment. They said, you know, like the gods are not going to like it. And it embarrassed Athena because obviously Medusa and Athena had a bit of a, what would you call it? A tiff, maybe? If that's even the right word for it. But yeah. And she realizes that her mother's embarrassed, which is why she's angry and why she's let Echidna and the Chimera in. The next scene that I'm going to be talking about is the Chimera attack. So Annabeth tells Grover to save Percy, to take him to the river, to heal him, and then for them to go onto the underworld to retrieve Zeus's Master Bolt. And she says, she doesn't implicitly state it, but she says that somebody had to stay behind to slow the Chimera down, and she was going to do that. Also, can I just say, like, the hair and makeup team of this series are so good. Like, Walker actually looked dead. Like, I'm not being funny. Like, he was as pale as a ghost. He had these massive red circles under his eyes. Like, even I was a bit like, oh, he actually does look like he's been poisoned. But yeah. Yeah, so the hair and makeup team of this series are so good, honestly. Like, but then apparently in an interview, Walker said that they normally put a lot of fake tan on him because he's really pale. But when I see pictures of him, like he does look very pale, but not like ghostly pale. I find it hard to believe that that's his natural skin tone. But yeah, sorry. Again, went on a tangent talking about his skin, but apparently that's his natural face that they used. And then Annabeth sort of tells them that they won't have time, they have to move on the quest without her. And then it's a really nice shot of Percy just looking at her. And there's like a moment of realization for him that she isn't the one that the Oracle said would betray him. Because obviously his first suspects were Annabeth and Grover who would betray him. But yeah, and you know, when I looked at his face, like in my mind, that meme came to my mind where he was like, his ass wasn't even considering letting her go. Like, honestly, that look on his face, like he just wanted to protect her, and it was so sweet. And again, that whole Percibeth dynamic coming out, and I love it. Like, I love that. I live for that love story. It's great. And then I thought what was a really nice moment was he hands Riptide over to her and he says, here, take this, like, as in, like, take it to defend yourself. And she just looks at him, shows shocked. Like, there was, like, I know for a fact that there is nobody else that Percy would rather trust with Riptide than her. And it was such a lovely moment. And then obviously he spins her around, he pushes her away, and he closes the door so he can face the Chimera. And again, it shows that whole fatal flaw that he has, that he would do anything for somebody he cares about. Like he would destroy the world to protect a friend. And I think there's so very few characters that are written like that. And maybe that's why like I love Rick's writing so much. He's able to create characters that I've I've just grown to love. Like Percy is one of those characters because he's so selfless and he's to me he will be one like the greatest hero that I've ever read about, because his willingness to do things for other people just shows honestly the size of his heart and how much he truly cares about the people around him. And I love that. I really do respect that in his character. Yeah. And then obviously it's the fight between him and the Chimera. And he says something. Annabeth says, no, like they're gonna kill you. And he says that, Sidon's never helped me before, so he's not gonna start now. And it's just that fact that he just doesn't expect anything from his father. Like been grown up, like he grew up being ignored by him, so he still doesn't have any hope his father will save him, which is such a big thing. Which makes Actually, no, I'm not going to say that right now. I'll say it towards the end. And then obviously Echidna and Chimera re-enter the frame. And do you know what? I have to say one thing, like the way the visual effects team for the Chimera. Do you know what? It does look a little terrifying, but at the same time, this might just be because I'm psychopathic. But I thought it looked really cute as well. I'm sorry, I'm just a weirdo. I'm fully aware of that. But yeah, and then basically he has sort of a fight with the Chimera, and a hole gets blown in the arch. And at this point, Percy can't even stand up. Like, don't forget, he's got the poison like running through his veins. Like, he doesn't even know what's going on, and he's still trying his best. And then he falls through the hole. And the shots for this are so good. And I also watched the documentary for how they made this series, and just the way they shot it was so cool. And he's literally just hanging above, like from down from the St. Louis Arch, and you could just see down in the shot. And he falls from the arch, and it goes completely silent. And then you can just hear like the water and the wind, and then the water reaches out and catches him, which shows that his father has stepped in to save his life, which is such a big thing. Like he didn't even expect it, and his father did it, which I thought was so lovely. And then the final scene in the episode is Percy underwater, and it's like a montage of him falling through the water, and then like his foot gets stuck, and he's trying to reach out for air, and he's really trapped because he doesn't know what to do. And now this is the bit where I feel like I'm going to say this wrong. Is it a Nayride or a Nayreed or a Nayride? I think it's Nayreed, right? The creatures in the water. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. And it speaks to him. She tells him that he needs to trust his father and he'll be okay. And you can see him, he's hesitating and he's still trying to push against the water and stuff. He's trying to find a way out. And she basically tells him that, you know, his his father's always been there, and he's always been there watching him, even though he's not physically there in person. He's watched him, and that he's so very proud of him. And what else does she say? She says something else that's really important. I've forgotten what it is. I should have written this down. um oh, she says that it was so hard for him to stand by and watch his son suffer. It's such a big thing. So I think it's kind of to like edge out to the audience that his father does care about him. He's just, for so many reasons, he's had to step back. Now, unless you've read the books, you're not going to know what those reasons are. I know what those reasons are because I've read the book. Um, and yeah, and he's still struggling to free himself. But then all of a sudden, like he gets like this after he hears what the narrator said, he just calms down and he stops struggling and he stops moving, and he just she just tells him to breathe, and he just inhales, and that's where the episode ends. Like the screen goes black and the episode ends. And I just thought that was a nice little cliffhanger that they put, keeping people interested, if you know what I mean. Right, let's kind of move on to sort of my thoughts and feelings regarding this episode. It's a very fast-paced episode, like it moves quite fast, but I quite enjoyed that because there's a lot in the first book that they need to get through. There's a lot that leads up to certain things, so I'm kind of happy that they've done it in that way. Also, I love that you get to see a few more of the monsters this time around, Echidna and Chimera. I thought they were really nice additions into the episode. Also, I like that it shows more of Percy as this great Olympic hero, which he is. He is such a great demigod. You know, he has such a fascinating origin story, and I like that they show more of that in the show. And also, I like that there was more of the trio in this episode because, you know, the entire story is based on these three characters. They're like the center point of this entire universe. And I'm so happy that we got to see more of them just being friends as opposed to how they are when they're in a life or death situation. You know, at the end of the day, they are friends and they have such a unique bond and they have such a love and care for each other. And I'm so happy that the show, like Walker, Arian, and Leah, they've brought that to life. Like they're exactly how I envisioned this trio, and I honestly couldn't be happier at this point to see them shine. And I hope they get to do all five books because I'm really interested to see the way the dynamic changes and evolves over time. I also think that the music in the episodes are great. Like the entire soundtrack for Percy Jackson, including the theme tune, I think is so well like composed, and you know it really gives that nice, you know, like hero story vibe, if you know what I mean. I don't know if that makes any sense, but like yeah. So yeah, overall, like I really enjoyed the episode, and you know, well, I say that about all the episodes, don't I? I do critique certain things if I don't like it, but in this episode, I didn't think that there was much that I wanted to emphasize because, like I said, like I was really happy with the way that they did like whole St. Louis Arch thing. I like that they included more of Annabeth's backstory, more of Percy, the importance of Pan to Grover. I'm happy that they've put all of that in as well. And you know, it's just one of those. This show is so great, and I highly recommend it. Like, I'm trying to get my sister into it because I really want her to grow up with the magic of these books. She's 8 at the minute, and I still feel like she's a bit young for the books. Like, I don't think she'll read them properly. So what I was thinking is when I see her like properly reading a book, like I was thinking I might introduce her to Percy Jackson. And obviously, like she knows that I'm a big fan because obviously I have a lot of Percy Jackson merch. I've got sweatshirts, I've got a hoodie, I've got a t-shirt, I wear my Annabeth necklace every day. And you know, I really live for this world and I'm so happy with what Disney have done with it. And like I said, I couldn't be more happy with the casting choices either. They're all so amazing and they all fit their roles so well. They've had some really incredible adult guest stars as well. And in the next episode is Adam Copeland, which I'm really excited to talk about. His character, his portrayal of Ares is so good, and I can't wait to talk about it. Also, next episode, there's a lot more Percabeth stuff to talk about, which I'm really excited. And I know for a fact that that episode is going to be really long. It's going to be me rambling and fangirling. So be prepared for that. I'm already giving you pre-warning. I talk about spoilers on this podcast. So if you haven't seen the show, I highly recommend you go and watch it. It's streaming now on Disney Plus. All the episodes are streaming now. Binge it. That's what I did. I loved it. I loved every second of it. I have no regrets about binging it whatsoever. And yeah, I'm just really enjoying like going back and watching. This is my what, third time watching it now. The first two times were for just enjoyment, and the third time has just been to just take the notes to record these episodes. But yeah, overall, like I still enjoy it watching it like the third time round, even though like I already know what's gonna happen. There's like certain details that I've definitely missed, which I'm happy that I'm picking up now. And once I finish reviewing the last how many episodes are there? There 8? Or is it 10? I think there's 8. So technically I'm halfway through the series at this point. And yeah, once I've done that, I'm gonna go and reread all the original Percy Jackson, the first 5 books. I'm nearly finished Heroes of Olympus. I'm on Blood of Olympus. I haven't started it yet. I'm thinking while I'm in the hotel room and I've got nothing to do, I'm gonna sit here and read, just to kind of relax myself before I go on my course. In terms of like my anxiety levels, they're getting a bit higher now. Like I wasn't as stressed like this morning, but now like I'm physically here and it feels real. Like I'm kind of nervous about tomorrow as well. Wherever it is, it is. And you know, this course, I've come all the way here for this, and I'm really proud of myself actually. This is going on a tangent from the Percy Jackson thing, but like, do you know, like if you'd asked me like a year ago to go to London on my own and go to a course with a bunch of strangers, I would have said you're out of your freaking mind if you think that I would do something like that. And now, like, here I am, and I'm like, I'm not. I didn't like hesitate. Like when I first applied for this, like I didn't hesitate. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna challenge my comfort. I want to try something new. And like I'm physically proud of myself. Like I took the train down here by myself. Like I got an Uber by myself the first time. Like to other people that might be like trivial things, but for somebody like me who's very anxious, like and who struggles to like do certain things because of their anxiety. I'm sure there's so many people, especially you guys out there, that probably feel the same way. Like I'm really proud of myself that I've done this, and you know, I was maybe for if anybody wants to hear about it, I might talk about it later on and just see how everything goes. But yeah, I'm really proud of myself for making it here, and it's been nice actually to record this podcast here because I've got a really nice desk in my room, so I'm just currently sat at the desk with my laptop and a cup of tea, which I nearly spilled all over myself, but we're not going to go in that. We're not going to go into that right now. I'm sat in my Percy Jackson sweatshirt, my pajama bottoms, and I'm literally going to have dinner and just chill in bed and read for a little while. But yeah, like I said, I'm so excited to go back to the original books because they really do bring me so much joy, and I'm interested to see what they do in season 2 for Sea of Monsters. I'm looking forward to the Siren Bay scene, Percy moment. I'm really excited for that. I'm interested to see what they do with that. And I've read a rumor that apparently their filming begins in November time. So hopefully the show will be out by next year. Hopefully. I hope so. I feel like I can't wait anymore. Like, I just want more. I'm so excited for this, and I'm just like, I really just wanted more of the show. But yeah. Anyway, thank you guys so much for listening in. I really do appreciate it. These podcasts are really long because I like to talk a lot. And I often tend to go on a tangent when I'm talking about something. But thank you guys so much for listening, and I really appreciate it. And in next week's episode, I'll be reviewing episode 5. I'm already going to warn you guys, there's going to be a lot of me fangirling, a lot of me getting really excited, and probably it will be maybe the longest episode because I'll have a lot of things to talk about. But I'm really excited, and I haven't decided if I'm going to record it here or if I'm just going to wait till I get home and watch it on the TV, take notes, and then record it. But yeah, this should go up in the next few days. What I'm thinking is I'll record it now, edit it, and then I will put it up. So hopefully it should be up by Sunday. Fingers crossed. And yeah, just thank you again. I love you guys so much. And I will see you probably sometime next week. Big hug to anybody who needs it. Thank you so much again. Bye, guys.